Hi guys, so today at Unknown Audio I'm going to be showing you some different ways to use Logic's NoiseGate in a creative way. I'm going to show you something that I call rhythmic gating that's going to allow us to get some rhythmical patterns to our bass sounds, and then I may also show you another way to use the NoiseGate plugin to get some kind of strange effects. Okay, if you're not familiar with what a NoiseGate does, basically it will detect sound coming from either MIDI or an audio source, and it will cut off that sound when it falls below a certain volume. The way that it would normally be used, I guess, would be to kind of clean up, say, a piece of audio, a piece of recorded sound generally. So I'm just going to demonstrate quickly on this shaker that I recorded. So let me just solo this and play it for you. So it's just a simple shaker sound. Now I don't know if you can pick it up too much, but there's quite a bit of sort of background noise that we don't really need. Now obviously this shaker is not particularly fast, so there are sort of discernible gaps between the hits, and in those bits there's quite a bit of noise. Now we could go through manually and sort of select all the bits where there's a bit of noise and chop them out, you know, like this, but that's quite a lengthy process, especially if you've got long recordings, or you're trying to do it across an entire track. So whoops, hang on. Okay, so we can use a NoiseGate instead of chopping all the audio manually, and we can chop the unwanted parts of the audio that way. So essentially this is a NoiseGate plugin. I would say that there are four main controls that we really need to worry about, and that is this threshold slider here, and then the attack, hold and release. With the threshold, depending on where we set this, it will determine at what point the NoiseGate kicks in and it cuts off the sound. So at the moment we've got it set to -13 dB. So as soon as the volume on this audio channel drops below -13 dB, the NoiseGate will kick in and it will cut the sound out. And the way it will react at that threshold point is determined by the attack, hold and release. So we've got it on quite a short attack, so the NoiseGate should kick in very quickly. There is no hold on here at the moment, so it won't hold the NoiseGate open for particularly long, and the release is up quite high, so there is a bit of release on it. So let's just play the sound again, and then I'll turn the NoiseGate on. So you can hear there it's cutting the sound down to just the main kind of hits that we really desire, and cleaning it up quite a bit. Okay, so how do we go about using the NoiseGate in a more creative way? Okay, well, let me just give you a quick demonstration of this thing that I've been working on. It's in quite a raw state. It's a kind of drum and bass neuro-y kind of sounding kind of snippet of a tune. So let me just play it for you. So that's what we're working with. It's a little bit raw, as I said before. But what we've got here is I've got, we'll just concentrate, let me just move these a little bit. Just hopefully so it's a little bit more clear what I'm doing. So essentially what I've got here is I've got 2 bass sounds, and then I've got 2 audio channels. And what I'm doing is I'm using a noise gate on the bass sounds that is being triggered by the audio in these 2 tracks here. So first of all, I've got audio. This is a drum loop on this audio 2, and I'm sending this on the main output for this channel to a bus. So that's going to bus 1, which is our sidechain 1. And then what I've done here is I've selected no output. Now you could do this, there's different ways of doing it. You could do it in a much simpler fashion, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure why I haven't done it this way. So if I come to the noise gate on this first bass sound, in the sidechain drop down menu, I could have selected audio 2 and it'd be detecting the exact same piece of audio. But anyway, I've set it up like this. Essentially what we want to do though, however we do it, we're not going to want to hear the trigger for the sidechain. So if we're doing it in this fashion, we would need to make sure that our output on the bus end is set to no output. If we were doing it from just using the noise gate sidechain to detecting the audio channel, audio 2, we would need to make sure that this audio channel's output was set to no output, and it would achieve the same thing. I hope that's not too confusing for you, but let me just, if I come onto this bus 1, so this is our sidechain for audio 2. If I turn this quickly to the stereo output, you'll be able to hear the loop that I'm using. So that's what's generating the rhythmical element to the bass sound, or part of the, there is also another sound at the end. I'll get to that in a minute. And then I'm doing the exact same thing for I'm doing the exact same thing on this audio 4 channel, and except this audio 4 is the sidechain trigger for bass 3. So in this noise gate I've got the bus 3 set up. So if I give you a listen to this sound, and this is going to be a little bit embarrassing for me, but essentially I used my own voice and I just recorded in me saying something to actually vocalize a rhythm that I had in my head. Okay, here we go. Okay, so yeah, so you can use pretty much anything to trigger anything that has any kind of noise. You could click your fingers and record it through a microphone. You could use audio of a percussion hit. You could use some Foley sounds. Essentially all we're doing is giving the noise gate something to work on, and essentially you need something rhythmical and dynamic. If you've got a wall of sound, it's basically going to keep the noise gate open continuously and you're not going to get a rhythmical effect. So if I come to these bass sounds, so what I'll do, if I mute these 2 audio channels which are acting as our triggers, and let me just come to the first bass sound. Now you should hear that this will basically mean that the noise gate isn't active, and so we're not getting any sound at all. So if I just disable this noise gate, and you'll hear the basic bass sound. Obviously I've added quite a lot of processing, so I'll tell you what, yeah, let's take the processing off. And hang on, I think I had one of these EQs disabled. Oh, I'll figure that out later. Okay, so this is the starting sound. So this is an Alchemy. I believe the way I went about making this tune is I went to File and Clear. So I start with a clear patch, and then I've got a saw wave on oscillator A set to -12. On B I've got another saw wave at 0. On C I've got another saw wave set to +12 semitones with some modulation added, which is an LFO, LFO2 I believe, which is synced to quarter notes. And then I've pulled the sort of depth of that modulation down, and then I think I'm also modulating the depth of the modulation with another LFO, which was LFO1, which is set to a rate of 1, and that's just the high pitch kind of wobbly kind of sound you can hear. And I don't even know whether that makes any difference to the sort of finished sound. You could probably do away with that step. It's probably totally unnecessary. However, that's what the sound I was playing with at first. So, and then on oscillator 4, again another saw wave, pan to -12 semitones, and the fine tuning just pushed up a little bit, just to give us a bit of detuning. So. So just kind of a very poor super saw kind of sound really, if we disable this oscillator C. So then I added a bit of processing, some compression, and then I'm using this plugin, which is a free plugin. It's a Doppler plugin, Doppler Dome. Which gives us some interesting kind of movement to the sound, sort of pitch movement and volume. It's basically simulating sound moving towards and away from a listener, I suppose, or a microphone. But that gives us some nice kind of movement to the sound. Then I'm compressing it more. I'm adding some distortion, so really quite heavy distortion. And then one of the main things that is giving us the overall sound is this modulation delay plugin. So without that, so that's giving us quite a lot of chorusing kind of effect. And then I'll skip over the noise gate just briefly. And then I've got some EQ, and I'm doing some mid-side processing. So on this first EQ, I've got this processing selected to side only, and I'm cutting out the lows and then boosting the highs and a bit of a cut in the middle. And I was also EQing the mid channel as well. However, I decided to leave this one out. It sounded better just flat across the mid frequencies, or and then a bit crusher on the end. This is just to stop us clipping pretty much. And then I've got this on Ascend, and we've got some extra processing on there just to give us that's basically EQing, compressing, and then I've got a sample delay to give us a bit more stereo width, and compressing again, and then a camel crusher again acting kind of like a limiter, and also to add a bit more compression, as if there wasn't enough already. Anyway, so that's the first bass sound. So it's pretty basic. There's nothing too spectacular about the sound as it stands. But what I find is that using a noise gate, we can chop the sound in quite interesting ways. So if I come back to our audio, and I'll solo this as well, let me play you the bass sound, and I'll turn the noise gate on, and you'll hear the difference that it's making. Okay, and now we can play around with this quite a lot if we want to. See, I've got the attack dialed up quite a bit, just so it gives us a smoother transition between the kind of when the noise gate's sort of cutting the sound off and when it's opening back up again, and the release kind of for the same reason, just to give us a bit more tail on the sound before it cuts off. I've got the hold down. The threshold is quite high, but we could push this higher. I'll just demonstrate that quickly. So that's almost cutting out the sound completely. I could bring the attack down a little bit. Maybe push that release up a bit. So by playing with these 4 controls, the threshold, the attack, the hold and release, we can kind of shape how much of the sound we're allowing through, and the kind of character that's given to the rhythm. So there we go, that's sound 1. Let me come to the second bass sound, and again, if I turn all of these off, so this is the original sound. I think I originally duplicated the alchemy from bass 1, so the sound was pretty much the same. I may well have tweaked it, I can't remember. I'll have a look in a second. So this is yes, so that's quite a bit different. You'll also notice on this one I've got some actual notes drawn in, believe it or not, whereas on this first bass sound they're literally just one note just repeating over and over, an F sharp I believe that is, but yes, on this second bass sound I've got some actual notes drawn in, but yeah. Okay, so you can probably guess that's not the most awesome bass sound you've ever heard, but we can mess with it and try and improve it. So let's come to alchemy. Let's open this up and see what we've got going on. Probably weird, something very weird going on with it. Okay, so the first oscillator, I've got the dark 1. I've forgotten what they're called. What are they called? Wavetable. Okay, I've got the the dark 2 dark 1. Sorry, wavetable. Oscillator B is turned off. I think I was doing some weird pitch modulation with that one as well. What does that sound like? Yeah. Okay, on oscillator C I've got a square wave pitched down 2 octaves, minus 24 semitones. Oscillator D I've got a square wave pitched down minus 19 semitones. That's a bit odd. Okay, what was the and oscillator A was pitched down minus 12 semitones. Okay, so again, a rather crappy sound straight out of the synth. But then we're going to compress it a bit, compress it a bit more, add some very weird distortion. This is another free plugin called Regressive by In-Ear Display. So just horrible sounding. Again, this modulation delay, this is again where a lot of our sound is coming from. So if I play you this, so I've got the chorus dialed up quite high, and here what's really given us this the main character to the sound is I've got this feedback pushed right the way up almost. It's very high at 91%. Now the only issue I've found using this is that it kind of negates us having different musical notes falling, because it's almost impossible to tell what note it's playing, because the feedback is just taken away from the musicality of the notes, if you can say that, from what I've been working with here. But you lose all sense of the pitch of the notes. So if I just play this quickly. So yeah, however, it does sound quite good when we've got all of the processing going. So then again, EQing, I'm doing mid-side processing again. So this is the side, again cutting the lows, bit of a high boost, cutting the middles. On the mid channel, I've got kind of trying to do kind of almost the opposite with what I was doing on the side. So I'm bringing down the highs, boosting some of these mids, cutting some of the low, the sort of low mids, and then a cut on the extreme lows. And again, a bit crusher. This is, again, I'm kind of using it like a limiter. And then I'm sending that also to our processing channel. But again, that is not really any kind of sound that we would want for our tune, really. Possibly if we bounce it to audio and, you know, just fucked with it, basically. However, if we now, if I bring back in the audio, so audio 4, and I'll play this again, and then I'll turn the noise gate on. Yeah, I'll turn the noise gate on, and then you'll hear how that's affecting the sound. Oh, sorry, you can hear my voice there. I forgot to turn this back to no output. So there we go. So there we go. We've taken some really quite awful sounds from a synth. We've stuck a crap ton of processing on it with compression and distortion and modulation delay and everything else, still making it quite a horrible sound. And then by using a noise gate with something to trigger it in a rhythmical fashion, we've actually made something quite entertaining, something quite enjoyable to listen to. Now, as I said, this is in a very raw state. And what my next move would probably be, I would probably bounce both bass sounds to audio, and then I would further process them from there and try and polish the sounds a little bit. But hopefully that will demonstrate to you just how you can use noise gates in a creative way, because we're using, you know, I've used a drum loop and some recorded sounds of my own voice. It opens you up to a whole load of possibilities from, you know, where you draw your inspiration for the rhythm that you're trying to generate. You can record it yourself and make it yourself using instrumentation or your voice. You can use loops, you know, even single audio hits, just a snare sound maybe, and just arrange it in a rhythmical pattern. And it gives us a lot of options, really. So I tell you what, I may try. What I'm going to do, I'm going to bounce down these bass sounds, and then I'm going to try and use noise gates in a slightly different way, again to try and get some interesting sound design, and we'll see if it works. It may not, but bear with me and I'll come back when I've got some noise for you. Okay, so I've just bounced out our bass sounds, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to let me just play these quickly. So that's the those bass sounds bounced to audio. What I'm going to do, I'm going to concentrate on this sound here, because we've got some very definite sounds and definite kind of gaps between those sounds, whereas this other one's a bit more of a continuous kind of thing. And I want to try and see if we can get some interesting effects by basically loading this sound on a send channel. So I've set up a send here, bus send on bus 5, and I've called this gate effects 1. What I want to do is I want to load a whole load of kind of like delays and reverbs, maybe. I don't know, we'll try a few different weird kind of effects, just to kind of draw out the tail of these sounds into these gaps, and then I want to clamp down on that using a noise gate. So let's just play around and see if we can come up with something interesting. Okay, something like that, I don't know. So I've added some multiplying effects, echo, and some reverb. So let's just chuck our drums back in and just hear how that sounds. Okay, so that's, you know, okay, it gives us a bit of an echoey, reverby sound, but I tell you what, actually, yeah, let's push the sound a little bit more. We can do better than that. Okay. Maybe let's put something. Let's chuck in this pitch delay plugin. Let's see if we can get it sounding a bit weird. Okay, something like that maybe. We could, should we go, yeah, let's go even further. Let's just mess this, twist this, mangle this. Let's do it. Let's try this. I don't know. Okay, that's not really working. I don't really know how to use this plugin very well. Maybe let's get the... I'll tell you what, that will do. We've got quite a weird sound without that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a NoiseGate back onto this processing channel, and I want to clamp down so that we're not getting as much of this reverby, echoey tail, but I still want some of that there to kind of give the sound a little bit of interest. So let's just have a play around with these. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up this threshold and see what that does. What I'm going to do is I might just try and I want to try and even out some of these different sound. I'll tell you what, let's cut that there. I'm going to just boost the gain. These first few hits seem a bit quieter than the rest, so let's... Okay, it's not really working too well, but maybe just getting an idea there for the kind of ways you can use a NoiseGate to sort of get some strange sort of effects happening. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Let's I'm going to try it on the other bass sound. I'll send that to this bus now and see whether we can get anything happening with that sound. Okay, so I've been messing about there for a bit. Hopefully you can hear the kind of effect I was trying to go for there. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm trying to load the sounds on this effects sort of channel, and then cut the sounds back down. So it's kind of like we're creating a too much kind of too much sound, and then using the NoiseGate to really clip that back. And then what I've done is I've put this echo and the sort of multiply effects after the NoiseGate, so that let's just solo this, and hopefully you can hear if I disable these two. So we're getting a very staccato, choppy, not really too pleasant a sound. Now if we add a bit of echo to that, it's going to drag that sound out and add some delay to it. So it's already given us a bit of a character to the sound. And in the very same way, this multiplier is doing a similar kind of thing, a very tight slap back delay. Now we could add reverb as well. I think that's a bit overkill. Perhaps we could bring the wet down a bit, maybe make it a kind of a tighter reverb. And now if I take the NoiseGate off, there may not be a huge difference. I'm not too sure. Let's just find out. I think in this particular example, this is not really making a massive difference. I've used it on other tunes where it makes much more sense, because we're chopping out a lot of the unnecessary kind of sound, and it really helps to just kind of clean up, give this impactful kind of sense of dynamic and space to a sound, without it just flooding and washing over the entire mix, which is essentially what I'm trying to avoid here by using the NoiseGate. So, well, there we go. That's a few ways to get creative using the NoiseGate. Hopefully that's given a few of you some ideas, and as always, it's about having fun and just messing about until we can find something that sounds good to us, and hopefully other people will agree. I don't know. So anyway, thanks guys for joining me, and stay tuned for some more videos. Please like, subscribe, comment, you know what to do. Thank you very much. Peace out.